Welcome to another episode of the Daily Chat podcast, where we talk about all things awesome and nerdy. He's back, folks. Dan Fingergun Tundis is back, guys. As always.
Hey, Kyle.
What's up, Dan?
Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Dan.
What do you call a group of two or more white guys?
Finger guns?
A podcast.
A podcast. All right. Hey. So this time we're doing things a little different because Dan and I both had some time restraints, so we're actually doing things over the internet. We're just going to be, chit-chatting about the newest Netflix IP, which happens to be The Umbrella Academy. Spoilers ahead. Massive spoilers ahead. But we're going to be reviewing it.
I like how you rhymed through the whole thing there. That was kind of nice.
Did I rhyme? I didn't even notice.
It was kind of Dr. Seussical.
Dr. Seussical, the musical?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd call it like a classic like A-B rhyme scheme. You kind of went like A-A-B-B. But either way, it was nice. I liked it.
All right, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So The Umbrella Academy, based on a comic book written by, of all people, Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance fame.
Okay, first of all, I friggin' love My Chemical Romance.
That makes one of us in this conversation. Not trying to insult My Chemical Romance or their fan base, just saying I never really got around to listening to them, even though they were like the most popular band when we were in high school.
They were definitely they sold the most merch at Hot Topic.
Oh, definitely. Back when Hot Topic was all about being emo and goth and everything.
That's absolutely true. But their first album, well, not their first album, but like I think it's like their second album, the
Black Parade,
3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And in fact, I want to do a quick plug because I really like this place. Over the weekend, we went down to this place called Donut Friend, which is in downtown Los Angeles. And it's like gourmet donuts, which, awesome. And they're like nice and crispy and soft, which is like my favorite kind of donut, and like they're crispy on the outside, but then like chewy in the middle. Love that.
Uh-huh.
But the whole thing is like early 2000s pop punk themed. They have like a Taking Back Sunday, Java Breaker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. See, you're getting it now. So
now I'm getting.
That was my segue to donuts because I just had my last donut from that place and I want to go back. And also
okay.
Pop punk.
I don't know. Were they pop punk? I always thought My Chemical Romance was more of the emo scene.
Yeah, I mean, they are, but I kind of always put that whole, like, when you look back at that, like, whole genre of, like, early 2000s, like, all...
Or that whole era.
Yeah, exactly. That whole, like, era, like, it's all-encompassing. Like, I wouldn't put, like, Death Cab for Cuties and, like, My Chemical Romance in the same genre ever, but I would put them in the same decade, and I'm just gonna kind of encapsulate that into, like, the early 2000s kind of pop punk, because it wasn't like punk like Danzig, but it wasn't like it wasn't like but like
not gonna lie, Dan, as somebody who grew up a huge classic rock fan and someone who I don't hate rap or hip hop or anything like that, but just as someone who's like kind of upset that rock doesn't carry the same weight as it does, there are often times where I think, well, no wonder, because when we were growing up, the biggest band in the world was Limp Bizkit. So
right, well, yeah, rap rock is an abomination.
Which is weird because, like, you'd think on paper it would work.
Right, you would think on paper, like, but there were a few bands. Rage Against the Machine did pretty well for themselves in that genre, and I don't think anyone would ever disclaim that, they're a bad band.
No.
A lot of super talented musicians. Oh.
A lot of what?
Super talented musicians.
Yeah, exactly. So, at any rate, let's just get into it because we've gone way off topic here. We want to talk about the Umbrella Academy,
which was dope, and
it was actually really dope.
I kind of like slept on it for the first couple of days that it was out. Like I saw the trailer. There's a big billboard across the street from my office with like the all the cast on the big whiteboard banner outside of Trader Joe's. And I slept on it for a couple of days, and I watched the first episode, and I was like, "Oh damn, this is money." Like, literally, my first thought on watching the pilot episode was like, "How much did this shit cost?"
Right?
It looks so expensive. Like,
it did look expensive.
It seriously looks. It's about what 10 hours worth of like feature length production value.
Right, exactly. Which is
Oh
insane.
yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah. The big thing too I noticed though when not the movie, when the show first gets started, like in the pilot episode and the second episode, when they're doing the whole establishing the universe thing, is they're raising a lot of questions. They raised a lot of questions all within that first hour and a half of the series.
And they didn't even answer all of them.
No, they didn't answer all of them by the end of it. No, but like you got some answers for most of them. Like again, like we're saying, spoilers. Like, how did Five survive this whole time? Why is he all the way in the? How did he come all the way from the future back to the past?
What happened?
Blah blah
What
blah.
happened to Six? What happened to Ben?
Yeah, we don't know what happened to Ben exactly. We know he's dead, but we don't know how he died.
Which I feel like of all of like the people with powers, I feel like Six is the one that I'm most interested in. From like because I'm a big Lovecraftian horror, and he like has this nebulous, otherworldly old god tentacle thing that comes from another dimension
Out of his chest.
Sure, whatever. Like he goes into.
I don't know. I got a very hentai feel from it, but whatever.
Okay. See, we're coming at it from two different directions, but ultimately arriving in the same place.
Exactly. Big tentacles coming out of the chest.
Right. I was thinking like elder gods and Lovecraftian horror.
Tomato. Same thing.
And you thought, oh, senpai.
Exactly.
You made it weird.
Yeah, I always make it weird.
Yeah.
So, first off, I just want to simply say, like, this cast was absolutely phenomenal.
Yes. Great casting.
For starters, you have Ellen Page in the main role, which I always love Ellen Page. I always get excited when I see her in a movie or a TV show or any kind of project.
Yep.
But for me, the breakaway, the one that, like, for me, that was the real, like, underlying factor was Mary J. Blige.
I know.
Like, I mean, I think most of us are more familiar with her career as a musician, which has, been phenomenal over the course of the past, 2 to 3 decades?
Oh my God. Since the late
80s, early 90s kind of range.
Yeah. I mean, she's been around since, probably 1988, late 80s at least.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's definitely been killing it. And I'm a fan of Mary J.
I have a lot of respect for her. She did a cover of Stairway to Heaven a few years back, and the prog rocker in me was a little upset that she condensed it from the 8-minute runtime to the 4.5-minute runtime. But for what she did, she actually did a phenomenal job with it. So right. I'm not complaining.
We're not. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I ever saw Miss Mary in was Mudbound. And that was the first time I think and that was also a Netflix film. And that was also the first time I think I ever actually saw her in anything that like she didn't do like a cameo of herself, Mm-hmm. But then I remember watching Mudbound and being like, wow, like she could really act. Like she can really act. Because sometimes you feel like they put, they do kind of like this cross promotion to put stars of other genres and other, kind of, this is like a super comic book, like deep cut, My Chemical Romance creator kind of thing.
Dark Horse.
Yeah, how can you make it like a little bit more mainstream while like throw in like a popular pop star, right? And sometimes that works, but then sometimes you're like, oh God, like what are you doing? But like, yeah, she fit into that role, into that like so well. And the fact that it's been reported that she does all of her own stunts.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at a Variety article that was published on February 13th, 2019. The headline reads, Mary J. Blige did her own stunts in Netflix's new Umbrella Academy. And then it goes on to quote, I was pulling glass out of my face.
Such a badass.
That is badass, actually. I have nothing but respect for Mary J. Blige for that now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That is.
And anybody who says acting is like more pussy than like being a football player, glass out of the face.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, being a football player is like reckless abandonment and just throwing your head into, people with small Volkswagens. Like, I don't know that I would say there's definitely, safer professions than football.
Oh, definitely. I'm not arguing that.
Say, like, there's more dangerous professions than football that you could like an acting to. I mean, but at a certain skill, like, yeah. I mean, doing your own stunts like that is kind of crazy, especially when you are, Mary J. and you're worth a lot. Like you are putting a lot on the line when you decide to do your own stunts.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, too, like when you're somebody who's as high profile as Mary J. Blige, and this is also going to tie into, I can't believe studios, networks, or whatever still let Tom Cruise do his own stunts. But, the bigger the name, the greater the insurance liability they
Right.
are, I'm
Right.
assuming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is why like The Rock doesn't do his own stunts, and like he came up as a pretty much a professional stuntman. Like other than if there's any profession that you're pretty much already a professional stuntman, pro wrestler is it.
Exactly.
That's it. Like what don't you do that professional stuntman do on the daily? But I mean, aside from there's something to be said about the wire work and standing in the line of the explosions and gunfight, but like her fight choreography. She did some fights with what were they? Cha Cha and Hazel. Like the fight scenes between Cha Cha and Hazel were so well done. Like that's one thing that I feel like Netflix has always done really well on. I mean, thinking back to like Daredevil and The Punisher, Jessica Jones, all the other like Marvel action movies. Even what was the Altered Carbon? Great fight scenes. The entire series.
I never finished Altered Carbon. I watched the first episode, and then for some strange reason, I was like, meh.
Yeah, it's long in the tooth, and I think it's one of those kind of, Blade Runner-y, future, neo-noir.
It was very Blade Runner.
Yeah, I think it helps if you have, an inkling towards that subject matter to begin with. If you are just kind of a, middling passing fan of it, I don't know that it's going to blow your doors off. That said, I am a fan of that type of stuff, and I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll have to actually sit down and give it a fair chance.
It was good. It was real good. Yeah, yeah. Props to Mary J.
Big ups to Mary J. Blige.
Well done.
So, golf clap. Good little golf clap. Yeah, exactly. So, let's break down the synopsis of this show. It is about, strangely enough, on some random day in October, 43 women give birth to children, which, doesn't sound that unordinary. It's just, none of those women were pregnant when they started the day. And then some billionaire comes around and scoops up, he buys 7 of them to form basically his own Justice League.
It's funny.
I think it would be more specific to say the Teen Titans.
Yeah, I would say Teen Titans or like the X-Men, like First Class. And I had watched like a couple of the episodes. And then like Nicole came around and was like, "Oh, like what are you watching?" And I like tried to explain it, and I just like took a step back and I was like, "Listen, this is the X-Men if Professor X was a dick."
Right. And then, exactly. Which
and then I was reading the comic last night because I read the comic. I read the first volume of Gerald Way's comic, and I think I don't remember if it was Garth Ennis or someone said pretty much like this is the X-Men for cool people. It was Grant Morrison.
Grant Morrison, arguably the second greatest writer of his generation behind, in my humble opinion, what is it? He wrote for Marvel forever. Now he's with DC. Why can't I remember his name? Brian Michael Bendis.
Well, I mean, Jeff Johns is up there.
There's a lot of great ones. I'm just saying. My personal favorite is Brian Michael Bendis. But at any rate, Alan Moore is great. Alan Moore is great too. It's just sometimes you read the interviews with him, and he's an interesting character to say the least.
I feel like he definitely has started and has done it before in the past, where he uses chaos magic to influence his life and surroundings, and he is just like a gnat's hair away from being a cult leader. If he's not already, he probably has already started a cult.
He kind of looks like if Charles Manson didn't get arrested. What
was it? He was like the Dragon Lord or like the Serpent something. I don't remember, but it was crazy. He was crazy. Right. Anyways, but so back to the synopsis. Yeah, this is pretty much the X-Men if Charles Xavier was like a super dick and really abusive towards the kids.
Yeah.
Or the Teen Titans never really had like a monitor.
No, they didn't. They were just kind of like Justice League Junior.
Yeah, they were always kind of like left to their own devices, which I always felt like was irresponsible.
Well, so is recruiting teenagers to be your sidekick in your vigilante crime on war on crime. Batman.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Batman, Wally West.
Yeah, but I'm a little more okay. I'm slightly more okay with it with with the Flashes just because they have super speed and they're god tier characters basically.
That's true.
But moving on.
That's true.
Moving on. So basically what happens in this is, and speaking of X-Men, it gets very Days of Future Pasty when somebody goes forward in time. Number 5 goes forward in time, gets trapped for nearly 50 years, only to come back to say, I'm here to stop the apocalypse.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. That was another hard part that I had to explain to Nicole when she walked in, because I was on like episode like 3 or 4, before she kind of like poked her head up and was like, hey, what are you watching?
Yeah.
Where once you start getting into time travel, having to explain the premise of something to someone just because then you just sound like a babbling lunatic.
Exactly.
Right. You're just like, well, this one went to the future, and then he was trapped there for a long time, and she's like, so who's the bad guy? And you're like, only being like 3 or 4 episodes in, it's like, well, there's the commission, and they're not really like bad or good. They're just kind of like, like neutral, like lawful evil.
Yeah, exactly. They're kind of like. I got a very. What was the name of the character that was like in charge of the commission? What was her name? And the actress.
Alison Way.
Alison Way, was she was that the actress's name or?
I know her as she was in Grey's Anatomy for a super long time.
I thought she looked familiar. I mean, I don't watch Grey's Anatomy, but I mean, like I've seen the trailers and stuff.
My girlfriend worked on the show, so I've seen a lot of it. I'm trying to remember her name. I don't remember.
I know she had a name. I mean, if we can find, was it Carla? No, it wasn't Carla.
I don't know.
Right, well, we'll dig for it in a little bit. And if we find it, we find it. But at any rate, yeah, I got a very Amanda Waller type of vibe from her.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah, which honestly, always one of my favorite characters, Amanda Waller.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always, when it comes to villains, I'm always very drawn to I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm doing this evil for the greater good, a la Thanos, a la Amanda Waller, those kind of people, I mean, I don't agree with their methods necessarily, but I mean,
Yeah, like I said, they're like, like I said, lawful evil, but I think chaotic neutral is probably, like the better way to kind of.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't Dolores. Dolores was the handler, I guess, was just her name.
Wasn't that who we were talking about? Oh, the handler. That's right. Kate Walsh played the handler. Yeah.
Kate Walsh. That's it. I don't know who Alison Way is. I know Alison was number 2. I don't know where I got Alison Way.
Mm-hmm. Well, she was great. Kate Walsh was great.
Kate Walsh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, she was great. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the commission was neither like good nor bad. They just kind of, were.
They're just doing their job.
They were just doing their job, and depending on like how you interpret it, it can be seen as either good or bad. So it's very much like in the eye of perspective. I mean, like causing the apocalypse, bad. Not doing anything to stop the apocalypse, like also bad? ?
But if the apocalypse is supposed to happen and it's your job to make sure the timeline doesn't get fucked up, like,
right?
Are you really that evil?
Right. Yeah, I don't even know what the alignment is on that anymore. I have no idea.
The best part about the show is they don't even introduce the main villain until like almost halfway through the season.
Well, that was the thing, because Nicole asked me, she's like, well, who's the bad guy? And this is when like the commission is kind of like mulling around,
introduced,
and you knew when Cha-Cha and Hazel were mulling around, and you knew enough to know that like they weren't really the bad guys, like they were doing a specific job, like they did bad things, absolutely, but they weren't like they weren't like the quote unquote like bad guy. And so she's like, who's the bad guy? And it was like, yeah,
it's like you pick.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Again, going back to it, I just want to say, like, this whole cast, though, just did an absolutely phenomenal job. Every last one of them did.
Right.
And you know what I have to say that I actually really enjoyed about this show, because where it differentiates itself from, say, the Marvel Netflix shows, may they rest in peace, is that this one definitely leans harder into the whole we're a comic book. simply because
Yes.
because they had a cybernetic, not a cyborg, they had an android for a quote unquote mother or nanny or whatever you want to call her.
There was a talking monkey.
That was the next thing. They had a fucking talking chimp.
They had a talking. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. It's a chimpanzee, not a monkey. My bad.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Words, Kyle. Words
Yeah.
cannot explain how badly I want a talking chimpanzee butler.
Right?
Words cannot explain how much I want someone, like, when I come home, be like, "Oh, welcome home, Master Daniel." Like,
oh, he has to have the accent. He has to have the British accent.
He doesn't have the accent and like a little like hang over the nose glasses, like the knot wrap around, and he's in a petticoat, you know, at all times. Like, oh, I want it.
Need it.
I finally understand why Michael Jackson had a pimp chimpanzee. Like, I get it now.
Right, exactly.
Because that's what he wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. I would want a talking pet chimpanzee that, you know, was my butler.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, the acting was great. I thought, I mean, Ellen Page did such a great job, but I was always really impressed with Klaus, Robert Sheenan.
He was my favorite. Absolutely. He was my absolute favorite.
Absolutely. I thought he killed it. Every scene he was in, he absolutely stole every moment that he was in.
He's actually, out of all of them, except for maybe Luther, he's the one that you feel the most bad for.
Right.
Though, in a lot of ways, because, you know, it starts off Luther who's the quote unquote leader of this group. He's the Cyclops, right down to the fact that of his undying blindsided loyalty, which we can get into that later, but in a minute. But, you know, like, first he starts off, you know, just having, you know, what was his power? It was just super strength, right?
Luther?
Yeah, Luther was just super strength, right? Nothing too out of the ordinary.
Yeah, Luther's powers were in the comic it's like a little bit different and expanded on, and it definitely feels like they set this up in a way to further the plot that everyone has like powers and abilities that they haven't quite tapped into yet, right? We got that with Klaus, and that he can kind of conjure Ben to, you know, do stuff.
To be physical.
Yeah, to do stuff, to like be actually in the real world. And I know that Luther's whole thing was like, yeah, he was like super strong, like to begin with. And then it's like something, you know, kind of like the superhuman reflexes and, you know, stuff like that. Kind of.
He was basically a Captain America type of character.
Yeah,
basically.
He is, but he's also half cybernetically, well, not cybernetically, half genetically created gorilla.
Yeah, exactly. He's basically a gorilla from the neck down.
Which he never really seemed that strong to me.
No, he didn't, like, as far as superhero stuff goes, not really, no, because we didn't see him, like, punch through a brick wall or anything like that, and, you know, Diego was actually able to hold his own against him pretty well, and from what I gathered, Diego just had, like, weak-ass telekinesis as far as I'm concerned, which they didn't really do a whole lot with.
No, he definitely, I think, I mean, even, it's funny because I'll go back to even in the comics, he's definitely the character that I felt was, like, the least flushed out, like, his name... Like, all right, so Luther was like Space Boy, and you know, other people had like, you know, some kind of whatever, like different names. But he was the Kraken. I don't really understand.
I thought that was six.
No. See, you would think it was 6, but it's actually it's not 6. Yeah, no, it's he was the Horror.
Oh, that works too.
Yeah, he was the Horror, but like, yeah, but yeah, for some reason Diego is the Kraken, and I guess he can hold his breath really well.
Oh, well, that's what it is in the comic book, because in the movies, he in the show he just throws knives really well.
Yeah, I know, and like, I didn't understand. I kind of like a Bullseye type vibe, but not. It seems like it's more, you know, supernatural than that. That he's just really.
Yeah, exactly. Really... But going back to Klaus though, like you know, once you learn what his power is, you kind of like, yeah, no, I totally understand why you're an adult drug addict. Yeah. Like I would be too.
I don't want to talk to dead people.
No, fuck that. I don't want to talk to living people. Like what the hell?
Very true.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, you know, just being able to talk to the dead, like or like how his father just does what his father does in order to help him, quote unquote, get over his fear of the dead by locking him in a mausoleum for like days upon days.
Oh yeah. Well, what's Reginald Hargreaves is just a monster.
Oh yeah, he's a total monster.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. He's just Professor X if he was a super dick.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
I like.
And then there was.
Huh? Oh no, go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
I like the way that this story like moved and was paced out over the course of the entire series. Like it felt that every time a question was answered, there was another question to kind of replace it. But it wasn't the same question or an extenuation of. It was question A and then answer A and then question B and answer B. You know what I mean? Like it felt very for a show about time travel. Like it felt very linear. In the way that information was like doled out, and I was never in a place where I knew or expected the ending until the wrap up of the last episode, where I kind of got I kind of got the ending I actually wasn't expecting. No,
I didn't get. No, I was expecting everything to be wrapped up in a nice little package, and it wasn't.
No,
it was actually like it was just a bigger mess that I got at the end.
It was a bigger mess, which is a great.
Way bigger mess.
Always a great place to open up a season 2.
Exactly. So moving on. So the big thing, though, we should probably get into the meat of it is the main plot ends up being, and we ended up getting the what do you call it? What was that character's name in The Incredibles? The main bad guy.
Oh, I don't know.
But that's the kind of bad guy we end up getting. We only a much darker version of it.
Leonard Peabody.
Yeah, Leonard Peabody.
So we kind of diverted from this that 7 children are adopted by Hargrave, and they're raised to be a superhero team to save the world, but nobody knows from what. All of these characters have special abilities and stuff, except for one, Ellen Page, Vanya Hargraves.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm not gonna. Which, to be quite honest with you, like as soon as they were like, she has no powers, I'm like, so she's god tier.
It's funny because I legitimately believed when they said like she has no powers.
For me, it was just a matter of like, really, you mean to tell me like all these kids end up having superpowers, but this one doesn't, even though her birth was pretty much the exact same circumstance?
Well, the reason I thought that is because they introduced 43 children were born. He adopted 6 of them.
7.
Oh yeah, you're right, 7 of them, but only 6 had powers. So my first question is like, all right, so the remaining 43, 60.
36 children.
So
or whatever.
Since I never heard anything about those other 36 kids that were born on the same day,
you figured
like they didn't become like supervillains or superheroes in their own right. I figured they didn't have powers either.
I think for me, what really started happening is when we started learning about Leonard Peabody's motivations and plans, like how he grew up, how he too was born on the same day, but his birth was completely normal, other than the fact that his mom died during labor, and then the dad just resented him forever and abused him until finally he snapped when he went to a Umbrella Academy rally, and he was shunned by Reginald Hargreaves, who again is a dick, and he just snaps and just kills his dad, and then decides, I'm going to get revenge on those Umbrella Academy kids. I keep wanting to say Umbrella Corporation, but this isn't Resident Evil. No. And then he finds Reginald's old diary, learns about Ellen Page's actual powers, blah blah blah, etc., etc. He suffers from I got the name too. He's a syndrome type villain, and I kind of consider Ellen Page a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer type villain, in the sense that she didn't get to play in any of the reindeer games.
Yeah, okay, I can see it.
Yeah. But at the same time, though, it's like you don't necessarily sympathize with Leonard Peabody just because it's very tough to sympathize with an all-out psychopath. But you do sympathize with Vanya, aka number 7. Ellen Page's character.
Degree. This was, you know, one of those really frustrating kind of shows where, to me, it's like, if there was always meetings between, you know, out of the 7 of these peoples, there was always meetings of like 5 of them, 4 of them, 6 of them, you know. Okay, given one of them's dead, but kind of not really. And it was always, to me, it was like, if we could just put everyone in the same room at the same time, we could actually get something done. But because one person who was missing, who had like critical information that would have been good to share, you were constantly like, oh man, come on, just like, you guys aren't, could you just wait for 5 to show up before you start the meeting? You know? Like, nobody could ever seem to do that. I have to say, I mean, if we're gonna get like directly into spoilers, I think that the relationship between, you know, Vanya and Leonard, you know, or Harold Jenkins, whatever, I think we always knew that was nefarious and bad, like right from inception. When he showed up at her doorstep, you were like, yeah, this is not.
Yeah, he was a little too charming.
This is not going to be good for anybody. I mean, even Alison, the rumor, you know, pretty much caught that right off the bat, that this guy's up to no good. But I think
exactly. Yeah, like it wasn't that obvious at first, but it's like once the whole he's sneaking around her apartment thing happened, then you're like, oh, okay, this guy's a dick.
Oh yeah,
he's the bad guy. Yeah.
I think, you know, once it's established that, you know, Ellen Page normally gives violin lessons to little kids, and then this grown ass man shows up on her doorstep, you know, it's like, well, this is out of tune, you know, like, no pun intended. Nah, fuck it, pun intended. It's 2019. Intending my puns this year.
Okay. Dan's newest resolution. I will intend my puns.
It's been my resolution since Jan 1. I'm keeping it going.
All right. Okay.
But I have to say, I was really... there were 2 moments that really shocked the crap out of me. And that was when Alison got her throat slit.
Yeah, that threw me for a loop.
I did not expect that. At all.
No.
Especially because, I mean, she ultimately didn't die. But I was like, oh, God, she done fo.
Yeah, she done fo. Because it's... You know, it's kind of amazing that, you know, you don't die after you get your throat slit.
Yeah, and I love how they just threw away that, like, one line of dialogue. Like, it's amazing it didn't sever her carotid artery. And it was like, I don't know, man. It looked like she lost a shit ton of blood.
Yeah, exactly. She had, like, enough blood covering her chest and stomach area to be like, it might not have severed her carotid artery, but, you know, it probably cut enough veins for her to bleed out. But, you know, hey, we got a talking chimp, so I'll buy anything at this point. Poor Pogo. I don't know. You know what? At first I liked Pogo, but as the season went on, I was kind of like, you know, fuck you, Pogo. You're a dick, too. Pogo got put
in a really tough position, though. I don't envy Pogo.
No, I don't envy Pogo at all.
As much, I mean, Pogo was definitely a dick, and did some dick things. It wasn't his place to, you know, bring everything to light for these kids. Like, it's kind of like this weird, you know, like, he's not really part of the family, but he is type scenario.
I mean, at first they kind of set it up so that way you kind of get this feeling of that he's the closest thing to a quote unquote real father that they ever had, just because he seemed a little bit more empathetic and, you know, nurturing towards the children versus Reginald, who just seemed more interested in his ledger than anything.
Well, I think Reginald was interested in anything, you know, but the kid's well-being, you know.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. I felt like Pogo got done dirty. I don't know that mom is dead, but, you know, we'll see.
No, she's dead. She did like everybody else because the chunk of moon hit.
If you die off camera, you ain't really dead until they show your body.
True enough. No body, no death. That is the rule. Plus, she's a robot, so they can do whatever the hell they want.
Her brain chip is still alive. We'll just put her in a toaster, and then you got
a exactly. Because we are actually like 5 minutes away from smart toasters being a thing. I mean, we already have smart fridges, which Kai will never get a smart fridge.
You know what was interesting was the lack of like the weird kind of every time period place that this existed. You know, Like it's 2019, but nobody has the internet.
Yeah, I kind of did notice that there was a severe lack of
There's no cell
smartphones and
phones.
everything
Nobody
like
had cell
that.
phones. Everybody was using payphones.
Yeah, you're right. I just noticed that too. Like, what the hell are you doing using a payphone for?
I kind of liked it. Like it makes it feel timeless. You know that. Like,
It does, but at the same time, it's 2019. Who the
yeah,
hell
but I mean,
uses
you
a
could have
payphone?
backed this. You could have. I mean, if you backed this up 20 years, and put it in 1999, this story would feel exactly the
Yeah.
same.
Right, but when were these kids born exactly? They were born
1989.
what? Yeah, so it doesn't really on the same day in October 1989. Yeah, so it doesn't really I get what you're saying, but at the same time I
No,
don't
but I'm
think
saying
it
if
really
like they were born in
works
1979,
in that way.
like
Oh yeah, if they
yeah,
were born in
is
1979 then
it
in
gave the
79,
show like a timeless feel. That everyone wasn't able to like quickly pull out a smartphone and be like, oh well, it turns out that Leonard Peabody is actually so and so. Like you had like people had to go and like work for these answers.
Exactly. Like Alison went to, of all places, a
And
library
just like the
to try and get answers.
miscommunication of like, oh, someone called and left you a message. When? Half an hour ago. Oh, well, I better get going. You know what I mean? Like, it helps set up,
Yeah.
so much more for the narrative than if you were just to get like a quick call on your phone.
Yeah, true enough.
Right, and the fact that
text
they
or whatever.
eliminated that entirely kind of helps deepen the mystery. Like I said, characters have to
A little bit,
work
yeah.
for it. Have to work for it.
Exactly.
But I think the biggest surprise that I had was the death of Leonard Peabody, Harold Jenkins.
I kind of knew how that he was gonna die. It was just how he died. I was like, whoa.
Right. That's not how I expected him to go out.
Yeah, because at this point, like Ellen Page has just gone completely off the
total
deep end.
psychotic break.
Yeah, which again, can't say I really blame her.
Everyone was always such a dick to her.
Yeah, I know, and like on top of that too, like you learn that she learns that her entire life has been a lie, that she's actually had superpowers the whole time. Then she learns that this one guy that she's actually fallen in love with has just been manipulating her the whole time, and now and then all of a sudden, I mean, this happens a little bit later, but then all of a sudden, she gets locked in that chamber by her siblings again, the one that like pretty much consumed the majority of her life. Yeah, she gets locked back in by them, and then also learning the fact that her sister Alison, who was pretty much the only person it seemed like she had any kind of a decent relationship with at all. Period. Yeah, she kind of learning that she had a hand in it too, like would definitely set her apart, set her off.
Yeah.
No, I did. Though to be fair, I think in that situation, Alison got done dirty too.
Yeah, no, she was definitely manipulated by Harold.
Oh yeah.
Who's maybe an alien?
He's maybe an alien. They kind of do hint at that a little, or he's got some.
There's
something about him that's
he's
off.
blasting off in a rocket ship and then shows up in like Ellis Island in New York in like 1880 whatever, and then dies.
I think I missed.
Oh yeah, I think it's like the opening to episode like 9 or something. Explains that like he pretty much like he's like talking to his dying wife, and like they're like, oh, he's like, oh, she's like, oh, you must go. And then there's like a shot of like rocket ships taking off outside. You're like, okay. And I'm thinking it's this weird like combo flashback of like this combo flashback, flash forward of like the apocalypse and the same time, like his past, right? Like we're getting into another like future loop here. But then it turns out that like, no, he like gets off a boat in like Ellis Island. He gets off like a creaky wooden ship and like shows up in like, what's, New York quotation marks, to like cobblestone roads and like, like early automobiles. And he's already like, 55. So you're like, okay.
Exactly.
So time is a little fluid in this one. I mean, even though it's a show about time travel, but I think he's definitely he's an alien. He's an alien. He an alien.
Yeah, he an alien. or something, or time travel or something.
I mean,
you know,
in the comics, he's an alien. It's never really gone into that far. It's literally one thing that is really funny is the way that Gerald Way writes it is like he writes it in a very
Gerard
kind
Way.
of like meta, fourth wall breaking, tongue in cheek kind of way, where it's like, you know, Reginald Hargrave is an alien, or is he? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. And you're like, it kind of does, and then it's like, nah, it really doesn't. And it's like, all right, I guess if you say so, you're writing the book.
Exactly. I will obey because I have no choice.
Right. I'm here for a good story, man. But you know, it's funny. I did want to talk about this. I know you haven't read the comic book, so I'm going to pander to you and the other listeners who maybe haven't read the book yet. I have to say, you know, there's a lot of times that we get into comic book representations of movies and TV shows and things like that. And sometimes there's like huge plot points like taken out. I mean, The Watchmen, I think, is a perfect example of this, unless you watch, you know, the 3-hour long director's cut.
Which who has time for that?
I do, because I love the director's cut of The Watchmen, which pretty much has everything, like just about, kind of. There's like some stuff missing, but like in broad strokes, it covers just about everything. The theatrical cut out a ton. But it's funny because this one, now I'm going to preface with, I haven't read the second volume yet, but the first volume of the book pretty much encapsulates like the whole first season as far as an overarching narrative plot goes.
Right.
The way that this show was written and plotted out is so much better than the way that the comic book was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There are like huge information gaps and huge plot points that are missing in the comic book. Maybe those are expanded on in the second volume. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. But I will say, like, the whole plot story with like Vanya and, you know, the Leonard Jenkins, the Harold Jenkins, Leonard Peabody, whatever character, that's pretty much like non-existent. And Vanya just like signs up with some supervillain because her feelings got hurt once.
Okay, I kind of like this one better.
And decides that, like, yeah, sure, I will end the world. Like, literally, that's like her motivation is like, yeah, my family was kind of a dick to me, so I guess why not kill everyone on Earth? And you're like, wait, what? No, that is nowhere near a responsible way to handle this situation.
I don't know. Like, it's safe to say that none of them are emotionally stable at all. Not a single one of them.
Yeah, I mean, even Five says it, that he's like a stunted man boy.
Yeah, they all. But Five seems to be the only one that has any grasp on his situation at all remotely, even though he spends like half his time talking to a broken mannequin.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, it's funny because the book and like Seance is pretty much the Seance number 5, no, 4, 6, no, 4, yes, whatever.
Seance would make sense.
Klaus is pretty much like he's pretty much never around in the book, which is such a shame because he's definitely the best character.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, he's definitely the best character. It's funny. It's maybe because, and I'm speculating here, I have no idea, I don't know. You know, if the first volume of it is 5 issues, so 22 pages each. If you think of the first season is, you know, like we said, like, I don't think it's 10 hours, but it's definitely 8 and change hours worth of content. Like, there wasn't that much, you know, source material. There was a good foundation, but they really had to expand upon it. I mean, I would definitely check out the book. Like, stylistically, it's very cool. If you were a fan of the show, like, it's definitely worth the read. I don't think there's like little things that you might pick up and learn. But if you're, you know, an acute viewer, I don't think you're going to get much more out of it as far as kind of the you know, kind of Wikipedia backlog. It is kind of a different story, though. Like, it is kind of almost an entirely different story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same idea, but very, very different kind of.
I hear it's actually very faithful to the source material of the TV show. So,
I would say stylistically, and its interpretation of the source material, I would say yes. But I would also say it in the same way that, like, was the first season of Daredevil, you know, faithful in a representation to the first volume of The Man Without Fear by Frank Miller. Like,
right.
Yes, kinda. You know, Like yes with an asterisk.
Okay. Yes,
You
with an. What is this? Is this like for all the an asterisk? Whenever I hear people say yes with an asterisk, I just immediately think like Barry Bonds and those guys.
Yeah. I know. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely check out the comic book if you were interested in the source material. I think it's definitely well worth your time. It's a quick read. It's a really quick read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very, very different but very much the same from the Netflix
Yeah.
we got.
Yeah.
I think the only character I think we kind of slept on and really didn't acknowledge as doing such a great job was number 5.
Oh, 5 did a great job.
Yeah.
I know Ellen Page gets top billing, but I would actually argue that number 5 was the main character more than anybody.
Aidan Gallagher.
Say that again?
Aidan Gallagher.
Aidan Gallagher.
Aidan Gallagher. You just loved that he was just like, he was a 60-something-year-old man in like the body of a 14-year-old. And he's just like salty and drunk and pissed off and just really shitty towards his siblings.
Yeah, it's also amazing considering the fact that I'm looking at his his Wikipedia page right now. Dude was born in 2003.
I know.
Yeah, I know, right? So he's definitely a star on the rise. I'll give him that. Like, I definitely really enjoyed what he did in this role. Like, he blew me away because it's very tough. Like, having a 60-year-old try and play somebody who's like a 13-year-old is one thing because, the 60-year-old lived through being a 13-year-old so they can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But having a 15-year-old play a 60-year-old, that's a little bit trickier.
Yeah, and I absolutely believed it. There were times that I completely forgot that kid was as young as he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I totally even looking at his, I'm doing the same thing. I'm looking at his Wikipedia page, like that he was born in 2003, which makes him 15. It never felt like a 15-year-old actor to me.
Not once.
Never.
Not only one who feels like now I'm looking at his IMDb page. Yeah, according to this, like he has he has only a grand total of 8 credits 7 outside the Umbrella Academy. I keep doing it.
And the T virus. And he carried the entire show. He really did.
He did.
Yep.
He did. So props to him. If he doesn't get nominated for an Emmy in the upcoming year, they're ruined.
Who knows
the Academy?
Because there is just so much media out now that I feel like getting nominated for an Emmy is so tough. Like not that I don't think he doesn't deserve a nod. I think we now exist in a climate where there's so much media.
For as much as I love movies, I definitely think it's true that what they say, we are in the golden age of television.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're starting to veer off topic, which I think means we've run out of things to say about it. Dan, is there anything you hope to see in the second season? Because it's going to get confirmed.
Just on season 1, I just want to give credits to holy crap, the song choices throughout.
Oh my God! Actually, yes, this show probably had one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. Honestly, their use of "Soul Kitchen" by The Doors was perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I loved it. To me personally, "Soul Kitchen" is one of The Doors' most underrated songs of all time. But
yeah, it was great. The whole thing was just the scoring behind it was great.
Mm-hmm.
As far as season 2 goes, it's gonna be more time jumping. It's gonna be more time jumping.
What would you give this movie on a TV show on a scale of 1 to 10, Dan?
I've been harsher on my reviewing. You know what though? I definitely think it's in the high 7s. I think it's definitely like a 7.8, 7.9.
I'm gonna give it like an 8.5. Actually, I really enjoyed it that much.
I really enjoyed it too. I'll give it an 8. I'll round it out. I'll give it an 8. There was one thing I think that really bothered me, that there was that one episode where like everything happened, and then because we went back in time a day, it didn't matter.
It did kind of annoy me, but it ended up being kind of a reason, just further proving to 5 that he can't stop the apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean that kind of bugged me, but that was my only issue with like the entire season. Like overall. But yeah, I would like, some more backstory and a little bit, diving. I want to know what happens to Ben, but I think they left enough information out on the table that makes me excited for a second season.
I'm sure if we went back and scoured, we could find hints,
Yeah.
Easter eggs, and things like that. But ain't nobody got time for that.
I don't got time for that.
No, I'll let the other nerds handle that. So,
all right.
So that's going to do it for us. Dan, as always, thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. Hey.
Alrighty. Hey, finger guns. And just so everybody knows, I know it might be kind of last minute for some of you, but I am going to be at the Ha Ha Cafe tonight on, what's today's date? February 25th at the Ha Ha Cafe on Lankershim Boulevard in North Hollywood, California. If you get there before 8 p.m., tickets are only $5. So be sure to be there. $5 before 8 p.m. All right. Dan, once again, thanks for being on the show.
You're very welcome.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for us. We'll catch you later. Bye.
Later.